Now, ladies and gentlemen, just when we thought CS2 was left abandoned for the month of July, Valve finally delivered, at least kinda. Late last night, CS2 devs released the first major content update for the month of July, where a few minor bugs were patched, problems solved in the new community maps, and of course the biggest addition being the new self-boost on Cat for Dust 2, alongside a slew of other things. Today's video, we're going to further break down last night's blog post, showcase changes, and discuss if it's considered the monthly update, at least in Valve's eyes, and if this is, it would be quite the downgrade from the months prior. Now today's video sponsor is SkinsMonkey. SkinsMonkey is a CS2 trading site for all your skin needs. Whether you're choosing to deposit your in-game items or real-life cash, SkinsMonkey has it all. If you choose to trade yet need to top up your balance, you can do so by also using my code MANDO for a free $5. Alongside depositing, you get an additional 35% of a deposit bonus. With SkinsMonkey's large variety of skins, they also offer daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways. If interested, the link will be in the top of the description down below. Firstly, for today's video is the update itself. Now, as it stands for this update, it came out of the blue, as most players were not expecting any large updates this month due to the recent work on Dota and TF2, that being just the last couple of weeks, where they essentially received an operation and a half worth of content, especially Team Fortress 2, which I'm very happy for that community. And as it stands for Counter-Strike this month, we've received 2 minor updates, a few things behind the scenes with a couple exploits, a brand new blog post for the open season, that being for pro play, and that expands the GitHub link, which Valve went more into depth, explaining major and tournament rules going forward. Now, we will touch on this later on in today's video, but most players are considering that to be, well, the monthly update, especially from last night. Now, Valve late yesterday afternoon released the 3rd update in July with a medium-sized blog post alongside a tweet. And with that being said, let's hop into the blog post. Now, for last night's blog post on July 22nd, there's only 2 different categories, and a few sub inside the map category, which is number 1, and the second category is miscellaneous. Now, the first category up in maps is for Dust 2. Valve modified crate stack outside of CT spawn towards bomb site A. So essentially where you would boost some of your teammates to get to Cat very quickly to peek mid, get the rush, maybe try and get the opera that's went down suicide, well, you can now self-boost and get there a lot quicker than you could before. And we'll go a little bit more in depth once the blog post is completed of how this is actually going to affect gameplay. But for the second map being Nuke, Valve made some clipping adjustments. And for the last 2 maps being Assembly and Memento, this is from the community. This wasn't necessarily work from Valve, more so the devs that actually made these maps in the first place. And Valve's just kind of publishing it, slapping their name on it as they did when they released the maps. And for Assembly and Memento, the devs behind the scenes made some minor clipping adjustments, made the performance a little bit better for us, the players, alongside a few other things. But if you want to check them out for yourself, the link will be down in the description. And lastly, up for today's video is the miscellaneous category. Valve added official game servers in London, England, reduced the fire effects penetration through thin walls, which this, I'm not 100% sure what this means. They say fire effects, so I'm assuming this is a Molotov and not actually you firing your gun, but I don't really know. If I had to assume, it's probably both, but specifically Molotov. Second and last up for today's blog post is Valve added the 2024 Copenhagen Major trophies to player profiles, which this itself, I gotta say props to Valve for finally adding them for one, but also changing up the design back from CSGO. Now, this major was completed in March and I believe ended in early April. The stickers have still been on the shop ever since, and up until now, the finalists, semi-finalists, and the champions didn't get their trophy. And lastly, for today's blog post, Valve made some changes to the workshop tools where they whitelisted this command right here, CS_minimap_crate_output_size. And that essentially concludes last night's blog post. Now, right away, the biggest and best changes, and I would say different changes from last night's blog post, are definitely Dust 2, as well as the champions and semi-finalists have finally gotten their trophy from the Copenhagen Major in March earlier this year. Now, what I want to quickly go over is the Dust 2 changes and how this is actually going to affect gameplay and performance. Now, not performance with FPS, but just how rounds are going to be played going forward. Now, I think as a CT, it's going to play a lot differently. On the T side, you're definitely going to have to watch out for more rushes mid, especially because this update just came out, and whenever an update drops like this, players usually only do, well, this exact thing. For example, is when Dust 2 actually got re-released to the map pool just a couple of months ago. All and everybody and their mom's dog was only playing Dust 2 in Premiere. Now, what I believe is I think Dust 2 is going to be a lot more CT-sided going forward. Well, you're probably thinking it's not that big of a deal since now it's just a self-boost versus before you only needed 2. Well, now that extra man can either go long, mid, or probably go B, where you can have a guy bounce back and forth on your team. So my question is, are the days gone of a solo B player, well, being a thing? If the CTs play their cards right, it's going to be a lot harder to take, well, one side or the other, because either teams are going to stack it, and you're going to have 2 guys with full kit on each side of the map, being A and B, and 1 guy mid. Now, I know we mentioned that we concluded last night's blog post, but that doesn't complete all the updates Valve made being official inside CS2. According to Gabe Follower, after some data mines of last night's update, CS devs have added new trackers for in-game events, and this was assumed to be added in a shadow update. Gabe Follower in his post said devs added new trackers for in-game events, that being for players who are hurt, players who are attacked, how far bullets traveled before it hit the player, how many surfaces were penetrated, was the shooter no-scope, was the shooter jumping, and at the end, he says anti-cheat question mark, which this has gotten a lot of people, including myself in the community, very hyped. But as it goes for what this means, I'm not 100% sure. As Gabe Follower suggested, and a lot of people in the comments, as well as some other data miners in the community, I'm starting to believe this is probably moving in the direction of an anti-cheat being added to Counter-Strike 2 sometime this year. So far throughout the year, we've had Overwatch added, but it's not accessible to the population. We've had the brand new cooldown system, which we will break down and pretty much essentially tear into in tomorrow's video, because all the new cooldown system really does is match cheaters versus cheaters, because there's not enough Steam support to look over all these cases cases of cheaters, well, saying they got VAC banned, they don't know how. So instead of giving them a VAC, they're just playing cheater versus cheater. Now, wrapping up today's video, after last night's update, this has led me to some questions. Was this considered to be the big monthly content update Valve have been keeping up with these last few months, such as the Call to Arms, the Fire Sale update, the On the Other Hand, and most recently the MVP update? And my answer to that is I'm pretty sure, yes. And if that is the case, that's actually a pretty big downgrade from months prior. And I really only believe this because Valve tend to release a video like they have on Twitter with a large update that has released. They did with the MVP update, they did with the Fire Sale update, the On the Other Hand, the Call to Arms, as well as the fact that the devs that are left at Valve have released major updates for Dota and TF2 earlier this month. Let's just hope for a major content update such as an operation with a long list of patch notes and bugs in early August or maybe the end of July. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay positive, sexy. I'm out, guys. Peace.